I'm Danielle Rogers, and I will be talking to you a little bit about the history of theater. I'm going to direct you to a timeline that we will follow that will guide us a little bit through the history. Okay, so we're going to start at the top in Greek theater. Greek theater is where it all pretty much began in the early 8th century BC in Greece. It's characterized by comedies and tragedies that honor Dionysus, a Greek god, at annual festivals. These featured a chorus, which is a crucial element of Greek productions, and it acted as a narrator or group character, or just kind of as a mood setter, just so the audience knew exactly what to be thinking and feeling at that time in the production. The audiences themselves were pretty active and responsive, and the stages were arranged in a thrust setting. Popular playwrights of this time included Euripides, who wrote at least 90 plays, Thespes, who was the first actor ever, and Thorocles, who wrote works such as Oedipuus the King and Antigone, and he also introduced the third actor to plays. Then we're going to follow the arrow down to Roman theater. Roman theater occurred a few hundred years after Greek theater began, and it took on many attributes that Greek theater did. It pretty much copied the exact same thing, with the exception of the chorus. They did not include the chorus in their works. But the thing about Roman culture is that they had a lot more options for entertainment. So they used paratheatricals, including mimes, chariot races, animal fights, and gladiator fights. For this reason, Roman culture in theater is not studied as closely as other eras are, but they did have just a few famous playwrights, and these included Plautus, Terence, and Seneca. Okay, and then we're going to go on right over to medieval theater. Medieval theater took place in the Middle Ages, and this was a time when religion was a part of everyday life. This was a strong time for Catholicism, but also the time where the Protestant Reformation was taking place. So basically, there were a lot of religious dramas being performed, and these dramas featured a lot of biblical stories by anonymous writers, so it did not appear that they were taking credit for God's stories or God's work. Liturgical dramas were also performed, which took place within the Catholic Church, but featured a lot of Christian teachings, and this became quite controversial, so Queen Elizabeth I ended up prohibiting these from being performed during the time of Reformation, and this actually paved the way for the Golden Age of theater, which all started in the Renaissance. So we'll just follow that arrow right on to the blue. The Renaissance is known for its great philosophical and artistic development. This is the time where Shakespeare became a huge influence in everyday life. This is an era that featured comedies, historical pieces, and also tragedies. There was a lot of revenge tragedies introduced, and this includes Shakespeare's Hamlet, which is a very popular work of art from that time period. He also introduced more complex plots and complex characters, and it was all thanks to the Renaissance. During this time, the printing press was actually created, which really helped distribute plays and ideas a lot easier to the masses. Then we're going to go on down to Neoclassicism, and this occurred during the English Reformation period. It was an era that used theater as an outlet to teach and also to entertain. These teaching encouraged good morality in people, to know what was good and what was bad, and the French recognized the benefits that theater had on people and the impact it had, and used this to control its culture. They ended up censoring plays such as The Cid because it challenged their rules, and Neoclassicism included three main unities, which is time, place, and action. And during this era, there was a time when more women were featured in productions. They were actually allowed on stage, and this was good and bad, I guess. You could say it was good for women to be able to be allowed on stage, but it also featured rape scenes and kind of scenes that just portrayed women kind of their just a few unfortunate things that would happen to women. This is a time when an Italianate style of staging, it added more depth to the stage, and this period came to an end when it was challenged by Victor Hugo's non-neoclassical tragedy, Hermione. Then we're going to move on over to melodrama, which happened in the 19th century. Melodramas or musical dramas became very popular during this time because they acted as an escape from day-to-day struggles and social stigmas of poor living conditions caused by the Industrial Revolution. These types of plays include a villain, a hero, and a heroine, and they demonstrated evil being punished and good rewarded. They almost always concluded as a happy ending, and they were enhanced by musical elements. They acted as the escape because they kind of the fact that there was always a happy ending for the good characters, it kind of gave them hope. Then we're going to come on down to realism in the purple. Follow that arrow down. This is a challenge. Realism was kind of a challenge for melodramas. While some people chose to distract themselves from the everyday, the day-to-day stresses and dramas, some people decided to look them head on and kind of face their problems, and that's what they did with realism. These plays just kind of took things that were happening in everyday life. There was no mythical creatures, there was no unrealistic elements to these. It was straight up honest, and these did not always feature a villain, a hero, or a heroine, and they did not always end well. This was a time in history where Charles Darwin emerged with his ideas of evolution, and Sigmund Freud published his psychological breakthroughs, and this kind of prompted people to think more realistically, and Okay, now we're going to move on over to symbolism, which happened around 1885, and this is when that emerged. It challenged realism. So first we challenged melodramas with realism, and now we're challenging realism with symbolism. Symbolism is basically using abstract symbols to convey the truth or look for deeper meanings, rather than outwardly displaying it like realism did. These stories usually took place in the past or in a fantasy world. All right, now we're going to move down to Expressionism, which is in the pink here. And Expressionism is a similar reaction to realism, but it tended to be a bit more influential than symbolism was, especially in Germany in 1910. Expressionism basically exaggerated reality and things that were going on to confront truths and meanings, and kind of just made you look more. It kind of left the audience thinking and motivated them to change their lives for the better on their own. Upon leaving the theater, some of the big playwrights were George Kaiser, Ernest Toller, Elmer Rice, and Sophie Treadwell. Eugene O'Neill was also a big expressionist who wrote things such as A Long Day's Journey into the Night and Desire Under the Elms. And finally, we're going to come on over to postmodernism. Postmodernism includes a linear narrative, avoiding the closure of meaning, so it leaves it open to interpretation of the audience. And these plays were often remakes or loosely based off of older works, but again, they kind of left the meaning up to the audience, so they didn't outwardly give their theme or give their meaning. It kind of made you think of it all on your own. And these usually challenged the status quo or the norms in society, or big things that were going on in the world during that time. But they were a little bit different. They didn't necessarily emphasize the text. So they did things such as, in Samuel Beckett's Act Without Words, there was no spoken dialogue at all. Alright, and that's it. I got all of my information from Explore Theater: Backstage Pass by Michael O'Hara and Judith Sebesta.